Welcome back, everybody. This is Yankee and the Brit Sports Talk. I'm Jay, he's Matty, and it's been a minute, but we are back. But before we get into the top five QB prospects for the NFL draft, we just want to shout out the family, some thoughts and prayers of Dwayne Haskins. It was a tragedy that had just happened this past weekend, and we just take some time to shout out to the family. And now that I did that, I want to take a second to call Adam Schefter a scumbag. But other than that, T's and P's to the family.
Yeah, I think this one's particularly difficult. He was born the same year as me, and that kind of puts it into perspective. Like, I like to think I'm quite young, so it really puts it into perspective. I think a guy who I understand people being hard on him for his career in the NFL, but a guy who had the potential to break out, I think, really. So I think it was coming for it. I think he was starting to put it together, and it wasn't a talent question. It was a first in, last out, that kind of question. I think in Pittsburgh he was starting to put that together, and this could have been a really big year for him. And I think it's a tragic way that he died. And when you see young black males in the States and you see that they've died, you fear the worst for how they died. But this was just a total tragedy.
And I do agree with you. I think him and Mitch Trubisky were going to push each other. I think it was going to be a great, real competition. I really, truly believe they would have played the best guy. I think they would push each other, and I think they would have been great for each other. And it's just a tragedy. Like, you sent me a message because you're up earlier than me because of the 6-hour time difference. And when you were like, did you see the Dwayne Haskins news? I thought he was traded. And then I Googled it, and it was kind of like a gut punch. And I don't even know the kid, but like you said, it's the age, it's everything involved. It's just really sad. And thoughts and prayers go out to his family.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Matty, we're going to get into the top 5 QB prospects. And on top of my notes, I said not one of these guys is a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
They will go in the top 10, but they're not a top 10 pick.
It's even the idea of them going in the top 10. So a lot of people are citing Detroit as the one to look out for. They're not. Detroit have so many issues that
unless they trade back, they are not picking a quarterback at number 2.
Like Jared Goff's perfectly serviceable. And imagine the freak that you could get with the number 2 pick in this draft. Like, you could get like a guy like. The Cowboys for the past 2 years have done great things in terms of just picking the best player available, Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, and it's worked. It's worked. Those guys have paid off, and they're good. They're good players, and sometimes you just pick the best player available. The Falcons as well, but they've just traded for Mariota. I would take these guys. They're going to go in the first round. But later first round is where I would even consider taking them. But I'm not even sure I would take a first round pick for most of them.
Well, I do think you're going to see one or two of these guys get out of there in the top 10. I do think there's going to be some interest at 12. You might see Minnesota trade out of there. But we'll start with my number 5 guy, and it's Desmond Ridder. And he's one of these guys where I think he's going to end up a career backup. He's got slow feet. He's a statue in the pocket. He can run, but it's straight line speed. He doesn't have any agility, any twitch to him, anything like that. He doesn't, out of all the other quarterbacks, he's probably got the least power in his throws. His mechanics are complete garbage if you watch him play. And I know it's the competition, but he only hits wide open receivers. He does throw a good deep ball, but if you can't hit the short and intermediate routes, I don't know what you're going to do either. And I don't like how he plays in the pocket. He's even like more statuesque in the pocket than a Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, he's kind of got that. He's the perfect career backup because his personality is so good for the NFL. His intangibles are great. He's taken that Cincinnati college season that they've just had was awesome, so great. And it's one of those things that he can always look back on and just be so fucking proud of what he accomplished. And he was a leader of that team, kind of that, yeah, I'm the leader here. And you never worry about that. But sometimes those people who have the best intangibles, who have the best leadership, have to kind of develop those traits to get ahead of everybody else to make up for the deficiencies in their own game. And I think there are too many deficiencies for Desmond Ridder to kind of overcome in terms of becoming a great quarterback in the NFL. And not good footwork in the pocket, takes too long to load up the ball, to throw it. Like,
he needs to sit 2 or 3 years before they even think about this kid being able to play. So he's a big project at best, right?
Yeah. Do you ever draft him to ever start for your team in the NFL? Like, do you draft him 3rd, 4th, 5th round as a backup to get the personality in the room? And if he gets to the NFL and that kind of leadership qualities, that kind of drive that he clearly has, that want to work, that want to understand the offense and things like that, they take over and he becomes a smash hit, incredible quarterback, and they teach him to use his feet properly and they teach it. But I don't think you draft him with the view to him ever starting for your football team.
The only thing that just popped in my head is unless you are the Indianapolis Colts, you get him in the late rounds, like 4th round, 5th round, and you let him sit behind Matt Ryan for a couple years, and you think Frank Reich, Matt Ryan, these guys can get the best out of him, because maybe he is a lot better if he fixes his mechanics, because they are awful. I mean, like, you go through all of these quarterbacks, and he's probably the 10th best quarterback when it comes to mechanics, not in the whole thing, but like there's 9 guys ahead of him who got better mechanics. You know what I mean? And so if you fix that, maybe because he does have straight line speed. So if he needs to take off, but I don't see him being twitchy like Kyler Murray, or that he does throw a good deep ball. So maybe if you fix the mechanics, but his mechanics are so bad, I think that's a 2-3 year fix.
Yeah. And I mean, he wins. You could never, ever. Sometimes you need to account for that. We look at all of these causes for why somebody's terrible, but we never look at the causes for why they just seem to always be on the winning side, you know, like no matter what. And sometimes just being able to win is one of those qualities in itself. And I think any team that drafts him will be lucky to have him in their quarterback room. I don't draft him and think, yep, that's the future of our football team right there.
Who do you have at number 5?
Sorry?
Do you have him at number 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's at number 5, and he gets there because of his personality, and he's this good, and he wins these games with those shitty mechanics. So maybe if they can fix it, but it's also how much can you fix without altering the entire way that this person plays the game, and like then you're kind of screwed.
He is a smart kid, it seems like. So maybe he's one of those guys who will just take the coaching, go fix his mechanics, and he'll be okay, and we'll be completely wrong in 3 years. But I'm not betting on a quarterback 3 years from now unless he's like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. You know what I mean? I'm not spending a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round pick on a guy that's going to have to sit the bench for years.
Yeah, I just think if you're a team that needs a quarterback to play for you right now, do not pick this guy.
No, we'll get to the guy who's the most ready to start at some point, but it is definitely not Ridder.
Don't pick Ridder, right? At any point, he is not ready to start in the NFL at all, and you'll kill him. You'll kill him as soon as you pick him. Where he needs to go is somewhere that it doesn't even need to be the best quarterback room, because I feel like he actually brings a leadership quality, and he's going to be first in, last out kind of guy. He brings that to your quarterback room instantly, and then that'll push the guy ahead of him. And I think he genuinely will bring that kind of stuff.
You send him to the Patriots. They sit him for 3 years. He learns. They trade him for a 2nd round pick.
Perfect. Yeah, great. But someone even like, I don't know, somewhere like Tampa, maybe, where that quarterback room's like, There's Tom Brady, and then there's Kyle Trask, and like he could bring something to that. He could bring something to that room. He could bring something to Kyle Trask's work ethic and things like that. And like Pittsburgh, where there's a quarterback room without that guy right at the top, I think it would really, really help them to have that guy like that. And he'll learn a lot from those coaching staffs that'll give him time to just. And as long as he puts in the work, he needs to go to a place where as long as he puts in the work, they'll give it back to him. That's where he needs to go.
Yeah, I don't think with him that's going to be a problem. Who do you have at number 4, Matty?
So the next 4 are all really difficult for me. So the guy that I'm picking at number 4 is possibly the guy that I like the most and find the most interesting to see what happens. Because let's be honest, and I'm sure the guys that are listening to this have heard this a million times. This is a very uninspiring draft class for a quarterback. It just is, and that's difficult, and it just makes you think. If you look at the quarterbacks last year, why not spend one more year in college improving your games? People like Calamond, people like Kyle Trask, why not spend one more year and then you're getting drafted in the first round?
Because we said that. 2 of these guys are going to be Hall of Famers because we said that, but
it's totally fine. It's totally fine. And you can see it happening. But the guy that I've selected is possibly the most interesting, and it's Sam Howell. I really like Sam Howell.
We both got him at 4.
Like his quarterback. Yeah. That's the issue. That's the issue. I'm not entirely sure how good of a quarterback he is, but when you break as many tackles as that, so there's this taking off and running that you can do as a quarterback. That's a great part of the game, has changed the way that the game's been played. And Sam Howell can do that. But also, if you close the pocket on him, he genuinely has the ability to run through your defensive end because he's so huge. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think his biggest problem, and I don't know if you agree, I wanted to ask you this, he's got way too big of a throwing motion. That's the one thing that gets me. And to me, his comparable is Baker Mayfield, but I think Baker Mayfield's way better than him right now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember listening to Chris Sims talking about that, and I'm pretty sure it's been said a few times, but he actually looks like Baker Mayfield.
He does.
As well.
He does.
But the beard's exactly the same. But this over-the-top throwing motion that he has to go into, he has to really crank it up. It's almost like he's bowling a cricket ball is how I look at it. But you think if he can fix that, and it's not a massive fix, it's just shortening the motion rather than changing the motion. The motion's totally fine. They were throwing the ball like that in the 80s, and then people have started flicking it and sidearming it and all of that kind of stuff. But they used to throw like that. The motion is technically sound. It just takes far too long. It's too long of an arc to work in the NFL. But if you think you have this guy who's basically built like a fullback who can also throw the ball, how much fun and what kind of a different game plan can you put together? And I think, again, you do not draft Sam Howell to be your quarterback this year. You do not draft him to be your quarterback. You draft him to be your gadget guy, your Taysom Hill, to come in 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, goal line plays, those kind of things. Bring this guy in and you can do all sorts of shit.
So I think if you're a team who has got a decent quarterback, but you know he's not your future, this is a guy. Now, don't get the crazy comparison because the guy I'm going to compare him to just for the draft's sake is going to be a Hall of Famer. This is the Russell Wilson of this draft. You take this kid in the 3rd round, you put him in there, and you hope he wins that spot from your starter. But you're not guaranteeing it. But so he was better 2 years ago when he had better talent around him, which is, okay, that's what happens when you're a quarterback, right? He holds the ball too long, but you can definitely teach him not to do that. Russell Wilson held the ball too long at North Carolina State, but when he got to Wisconsin, he didn't. He's gritty. He can take a shot. He is really good in the pocket. He can read defenses. He goes through his progressions. You can see it. He goes through his progressions. His throwing motion is way too big, but it's really weird. I don't know how he is on intermediate passes because all they throw is screens and go routes. That's all they did at NC, like screens and go routes, screens and go routes. But this is a kid, even though I have him fourth, I think he's one of them that either he just flutters out or he legitimately comes a decent to good starter in the NFL. And so I take a chance on him, probably even more than I take a chance on some other guys, even though I have him rated lower, because the value for me, where you're going to get him, is going to line up with we could hit lightning in a bottle with this kid.
Yeah, even if you've got a quarterback who's really good, you're happy to be. You could see the Vikings taking him third round.
But that's because that's because then we can get rid of Cousins after 2 years. I agree with you. I'm just saying if you're a team that's not sold on your quarterback for the long-term future, and I agree the Vikings fall in that you do it, but you don't want to hamstring this kid behind like a Patrick Mahomes where he's never going to get any reps or anything.
Yeah, I would want him to be playing this year. It's different to Ridder. It's different in that way because he brings an element to the game where he can overcome his non-readiness to play. And PFF are the guys on PFF.
He is a Dan Campbell type of guy if I've ever seen one.
Campbell
takes this kid in the third or fourth round, sits him, lets him sit 8 games behind Goff, learn, and then maybe take over from Goff, and then you're out of Goff's contract next year, 2 year with a kid on a rookie deal. Whew.
I like that. Even a Browns kind of guy, like because you don't really know what's happening with Deshaun. It looks like there's no real word on it yet. We don't know what's happening with Deshaun. Baker Mayfield doesn't want to be there anymore. So why not take Baker Mayfield? No, he's not as good as Baker Mayfield in terms of throwing the ball, but athletically he's better than Baker Mayfield. This guy brings something to your team day one. Yeah.
That helps though. I think sometimes Kyler and Baker get lost behind the offensive line.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, Arizona might not be a terrible spot. Like the way that they use the run game a lot, that kind of stuff. It's just he actually brings something to your team day one because of the gadgets that he has, which is why I wanted to be
old.
Yeah. He brings so I think he's worth it. I genuinely
we both have him fourth, and we both seem to love this kid.
I would have ranked him higher than fourth if we weren't talking about QBs.
Okay.
Like if he was the Cowboys starting quarterback, I'd be pretty pissed. But if he's on the Cowboys roster and you could just bring him in to play 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, that kind of shit, I'd be very happy. I'd be very happy to see him as our 3rd string quarterback, but he plays more reps than the 2nd string quarterback, if you know what I mean, just not necessarily
leading. This actually seems durable enough to take some handoffs, like you were saying, like Taysom Hill or something like that too. Also, Dak's probably athletic enough to run a route, so you could do something weird with them both on the field. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Like I like him as a gadget from day one, and then as you say, he might turn into like Taysom Hill can win games in the NFL. Taysom Hill is more than a backup in the NFL.
He's going to be better than Taysom Hill.
In terms of actually throwing the ball, I think so as well. I think Taysom Hill is just a freaky athlete, so it's very difficult to. But this guy, it's just he's a barrel. Like no quarterback has broken this many tackles, and I know. When I do watch college highlights, I do think we need to teach people how to tackle a bit. But
he's the Jim Brown of quarterbacks, man.
Yes. He just runs through people. It's like he just goes Marshall Lynch beast mode, like straight through. No, he's going to get absolutely poleaxed in his first time. He'll meet Micah Parsons and get his head taken off, like straight away. But Bobby Wagner is going to kill him. Like, you know what I mean? Linebackers in the NFL won't let him run over them like that.
So at number 3, I have the guy who, if you need a starting quarterback this year, this is the most ready guy in the draft right now, and he's probably the safest pick out of a quarterback. But I think his floor is high, his ceiling's low, and he is what he is. It's Kenny Pickett. And I know the hand size scares me, and people are like, he throws in Pittsburgh. It's not about throwing, you guys. It's when a D lineman comes around and swats at that ball around the corner that hand size scares me. But he's a guy I think Pittsburgh may try to trade up to draft in this draft.
I also have him at 3 as well. This is really strange.
He is a smart guy. He processes very quickly. He is super accurate on short to medium. He struggles a little with the deep ball, but you can get better at that. He's athletic. He is great in the pocket. He feels pocket presence. The only thing I got against him is small hands, and I don't think his ceiling is super high. I think what you get is what you get. I don't think he's going to become so much better, but that's the same thing I felt about Mac Jones too.
Exactly. He's the most Mac Jones of all of the guys. And Mac Jones arguably had the best season of all the quarterbacks that were drafted last year. We can argue that.
But I get you.
We can argue that, but yeah. He's kind of Davis Millsy as well, I guess. He is who he is. And if you need a starting quarterback, take this guy. He can read the game at an NFL level. He progresses through his reads properly. That hand size thing, it's not actually his hand size. Apparently, it's he can't actually straighten his thumb properly, is what I heard. So when they measure the hand, all these fingers are a lot longer, but this one won't. So if they measure it from here to here, and his finger won't.
Pro day, his hand was a lot smaller than or a lot bigger than at the combine. It was weird.
Yeah, and they got somebody to straighten out his thumb.
Or he went to some massage therapist or something.
Yeah, to hold down his thumb. Which is why the glove works for him, but not for other quarterbacks, because he can't actually grip the ball properly without the glove because of his thumb. So he's been thrown with that glove since he was 10. Because that's how he's.
The only guy in history that I can remember that went with and without gloves, depending on the game, was Hall of Famer Kurt Warner. Otherwise, Teddy's got to throw with the gloves. But a lot of guys, those gloves, in cold weather, they wear one on their non-throwing hand. It's weird to watch a quarterback wear gloves.
Yeah, I think it is as well. But I think. One with the technology improvements in sportswear today, then it shouldn't be too much of an issue if you need to wait. They'll figure that out. If that's the reason that your quarterback can't throw the ball, your franchise will find a fucking way to get a glove made that will help you throw the ball. And
it's different, but the same. The Saints were like Jameis, LASIK, buddy, LASIK.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like if there is a problem that we can throw money at to make it go away, we will do that. Don't fucking worry, it's fine. So if the glove's too grippy and it's making him hold on to the ball a little longer, so he's dragging it into the floor a little more than he wants to, they'll find a way to fix that.
If the glove don't fit, you must have quit. Oh,
yeah. And it's so the hand size thing shouldn't be too much of an issue. He would have the smallest hands in the NFL today, but he's been playing with that for all of his life. So I'm not always big on the hand size issue being a problem. What is a problem is his ceiling is just there. That's where it is. And the physical traits, he's quicker than he looks. And he's a little more athletic than he looks. But the positives are quick release, decent footwork, doesn't take a lot of room to throw the ball.
He's Big Ben-like, but not as good as Big Ben.
Yeah, and he reads the game at an NFL level. That's what you get from him. So if you're a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, which... Yet the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is a quarterback away from being one of the best offenses in the NFL. When you look at that wide receiver group, then you just go for that. He's who you pick. He is who you pick. If you are the Atlanta Falcons, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they're the two teams that I'm looking at and saying, the New Orleans Saints, those kind of teams. then pick Kenny Pickett. Actually, the Saints run a bit of a crazy offense, so well, maybe not with Sean Payton there. So we're not entirely sure what goes on there.
I even think if he falls, like, say, to the second round and you're the Giants, you jump on him.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, that's just what I think. Actually, I think the Giants would be a good team for a Sam Howell and the guys that we're going to pick because they already have their low ceiling quarterback. You don't need another one of them. Like, like Dan Jones is a ridiculously smart guy and he reads the game very well and he can throw the ball. I don't hate Dan Jones. I'm not on that bandwagon. I'm not on that. Yeah. The Commanders. The Commanders. I know Carson Wentz is there now, but Kenny Pickett probably reads the game a little better than Carson Wentz does already because Carson Wentz can't stop throwing it to the other team.
The weird thing about these quarterbacks, though, is you got to risk a high pick to get these top 3 guys, which I'm not sure that they're worthy of it because, like, I'll say this. Right now, Baker Mayfield is better than everybody on this list. So if you got the cap room, go get Baker Mayfield instead of drafting one of these guys.
Yeah, once again, I'd say that Kyle Trask is college film and Kellen Mond's college film and David Mills' performances in the NFL, I would say they'd be the top. They'd be the top 3, bar maybe one player getting in there.
Well,
instead of them,
who do you have at number 2, Matty?
I have Malik Willis at number 2, and I have Malik Willis at number 2 on projection alone. He's the most electric guy out there. His pro day tape is insane. He makes that Zach Wilson kind of absolute bomb while his body's facing the entire way on the pro day film, and you look at that and you go, right, okay, cool, awesome, great. My problem with Malik Willis is the level that he plays at, he can only throw to totally open guys. And like he doesn't throw the ball into tight windows. He doesn't just go, yep, I'm launching that into tight windows. His throwing action just looks a bit weird to me. And he's not as quick as what people give him credit. He's incredibly athletic.
He's not as fast as some people. Some people want to argue his speed. I think guys like Chris Sims who are doubting his speed are absolutely wrong, but we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not sure how rapid he is in a straight line compared to the other quarterbacks that we've spoken about in terms of maneuverability. But with all that said, he's the guy that's going to make that fucking Tony Romo style getting swung about in the backfield, but keeping on his feet, elusive evading of defensive linemen, and then launching a ball down the field to hit a wide open receiver because everybody's thinking that he's going to get taken down. And if you're looking for somebody to build, if you're looking for somebody to play next year, I wouldn't sit him for loads of time, but kind of maybe that Patrick Mahomes style. Okay, maybe he needs to come in, learn the NFL a little bit to adjust his technique to the NFL. Then you bring in Malik Willis. So somebody like an Indy, somebody like the Vikings, he'd probably be a good spot there as well. I think you're going to have to give up a decent amount to get Malik Willis, though, is the only issue.
Yeah, he's another guy that I put could trade up to like the Viking spot or somewhere like 11, 13, depending, you know what I mean, to get somebody like that. At number 2, I got Matt Corral. I think he's a crazy athlete. He's got quick feet. He's got good body control. He's got a really quick release and a strong arm, runs good bootlegs, but I question his decision-making, his processing, his speed, like how fast he processes the game. I never see him go through progressions. Mm-hmm. So he makes me really nervous. He's got a lot of really good traits, but he's a guy that could be boom or bust. And I don't think I risk a first-round draft pick on a guy who could be a bust.
Yeah, I mean, the way that all of these guys are, I think I wouldn't risk a first-round draft pick on any of them, because of the talent in the other positions and the teams that now need, thanks to how awesome the quarterback class was last year, all the teams that needed a quarterback have now got quarterbacks. There's not many teams out there that need quarterbacks now. So
well, I think Willis and Pickett are first round picks. I just don't think they're high picks because I got Malik at number 1, which means I'm guessing you got Matt Corral at number 1.
Yeah.
So with Malik, I love him because he's got a big arm. He makes every throw look easy. I think his mechanics are great. I love his body control. He makes the deep ball look fucking easy every time he flicks that thing. He's a good athlete. He's got quick first step. He runs like a running back with his twitch. He's a twitchy guy.
Yeah.
That's good, but it also makes me nervous, kind of like how don't get blown the fuck up in the NFL. And I love how he throws on the run. I think Willis is the guy that if anybody is going to come out of this draft and be one of the, like a dude in the NFL, it's this dude. But I still not sold that that's going to happen. I know I'm making this sound like, oh, he's can't miss or whatever. He's the best of, I don't want to say bad quarterbacks, but not as good quarterback class. But I will say college tape only, Malik Willis to me is a better Trey Lance, and I'm a big fan of Trey Lance.
Yeah, but Trey Lance didn't play, so that's going to be very difficult.
Well, yeah, I don't know what Trey Lance is in the NFL
Yeah.
yet, but as a college quarterback and potential,
I barely played in college.
last year about Trey Lance coming out of the draft. Really fan of his. I think Malik Willis is comparable to Trey Lance, but that's again like we talked last year. You have to be okay with the fact the guy you're drafting is going to be boom or bust.
Yeah. Malik Willis is Jalen Hurts, in my opinion.
I like him better than Jalen, but I don't argue your comparison. That's just a personal preference. But I get exactly where you're coming from.
His action, I tell you what the problem with his action is for me. Just looking at it, I know very little about quarterback play, but I'd say it is the area of technique where I have worked the most on over this past year, watching quarterbacks to try and understand what makes a good one and what makes a bad one, because I find technique and teaching and all of that really interesting. It's a massive passion of mine. And for what I've seen from Malik Willis, and I'm at the start of by the time we get to our mock drafts and shit, we might have changed this all around because I'm at the start of my tape watching season for the draft. But from what I've seen in terms of his tape so far is that flick that you're talking about that makes it come out really easy. The issue is that flick is what he's got. So he's relying on that flick. He's not relying on opening up his shoulder and actually like ripping the ball. Like it's that flick, beautiful, like great, but don't rely on that flick. Like rely on like shoving it like straight through with the shoulder. And
he's pretty accurate, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I love the way he throws on the run too, though. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And let me be fair. I have him the 18th best player in the draft. 18th.
Oh, he's on my big board. They're all down there.
But like, if you're asking me, like to do a big board, he's around 18 for me right now, and I'm not done going through everything. So even though I got him as the best quarterback, I don't think you should spend a high pick. Now, if I could just grab him and put him on my team without spending a high draft pick and let him sit behind Cousins for 2 years, I am all in. Do not get me wrong. But I think the only guy, if you're drafting this year and you want him to start right away, is Pickett.
Yeah, 100%. I love Matt Corral though. I just want to put this out there that I genuinely really, really like Matt Corral. I know I've been hard on this draft class, but Matt Corral has the perfect assets to be for the modern NFL. His RPOs, his bootlegs, he's got really quick release, and with the way that D linemen are coming out and they're just freaks of nature and the offensive line has no chance, that quick and accurate release is really important. And if he goes to a system where they've got loads of weapons and they'll scheme him into places where he's thrown on the run and he's faster than I think he's faster than Willis in a straight line. I really like Matt Corral. I think and he's really good. I think he's just kind of made for the modern NFL. I think Malik Willis, his highlight reel will be better than any quarterback in this draft. Malik Willis's highlight reel just jumps off the page.
This won't happen, but it just hit me. So if Lamar is refusing to even talk to the Ravens right now with a contract, we see that there's some weird shit going on. Lamar doesn't have an agent. There's speculation that he just wants to get franchise tagged twice and hit the open market. Maybe this is a guy you bring in, let him sit behind Lamar. If you can't work something out, you trade Lamar.
Yeah, and it would work really, really well. I genuinely think he's made for this modern NFL. Like you've seen, like he's got the sidearm throws, he's got he's got this really nice quick release. He's the most accurate quarterback in the draft class. Even though his stats don't say that, but that's just because of the offense that they were running.
He's got almost 68%, where Ritter's almost 69%. But what we saw, that scheme open, a lot of screens for Ritter. So it was different. Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of the stat, but the Corral is the most accurate in terms of and Corral. What you said that you didn't like about him, and it was him thrown into two tight windows. I actually love that about him.
No, I said I don't see him make progressions. That's my problem. Yeah. I don't know. I don't see his decision making. And so if he can do that, then it's a step up. But I've never put on his film and go, oh, he went from 1 to 2 to 3. It's not his game. And so either you can or you can't do it. And I'm not saying he can't, but we haven't seen it. So that scares me, where I said for him, I think he's another guy who's boom or bust, and I'm not wasting a first round draft pick. But I'm not drafting any of these guys in the first round, even though I think 3 of them are going to go in the first round.
Yeah, if I'm Pittsburgh, then I'm giving that pick. If I'm Pittsburgh, then I'm saying, okay, what's our needs? Our need is a quarterback, right? Let's take one then. And if you're the Saints, you're in the same boat, because what are you going to do if you then miss out on these guys in the second round?
Well, Seattle needs a quarterback too.
Yeah, exactly. If you're stuck with Ritter or Cameron Strong or those kind of guys, they're a big drop off these top 3. Like Pickett, Sam Howell's, we love him, and he could.
Some of these guys are going to be out of the league in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, 100%. The drop off is massive between Pickett and Howell, and that's just because of Pickett's ready for the NFL today. He's not going to ever be the best quarterback in the NFL, but he's ready for it.
If you do not need to draft a quarterback in this draft, you're better off, because if you're a team that needs a quarterback, this is not the best draft to go and get your quarterback.
Yeah, those teams that were doing deals with loads of draft loads of draft capital for 2023, so they can have a better look at all the players when there's no COVID. In terms of if you were doing that to look at any QBs, and you were hoping that Spencer Rattler was going to be able to piece it all together and be able to come out as the best guy in the draft, where's he?
Well, if you watch him in that series he does, I think his attitude has a lot to do with why he's not playing as well. Yeah. But so the Eagles and the Saints made that weird trade that we never see for picks. So the Eagles can stack up picks for next year in case, they want to go get a quarterback and Jalen's not the guy. I think that was smart by them, but what the hell the Saints were doing, they must be wanting to have the ammunition to move up for a quarterback, but I'm not even sure who they're even thinking.
It's who fits them. It's Malik Wills fits them the best, probably, or Corral. A lot of RPOs.
Now that Allen's the head coach, I was thinking maybe he just wants, because Kenny Pickett reminds me a lot of Derek Carr coming out of the draft. He is what he is. You know what you're getting. This kid's going to be this. Maybe that's just what they're looking for, stability. And if you just want stability, then Pickett's your guy.
Yeah, I mean, who is the quarterback when the Saints have had their most successful time in the entire NFL? It's possibly one of the most stable guys to ever play the game, Drew Brees. And they've gone away
without Sean Payton. We don't know what that offense is necessarily going to be.
Yeah, and so maybe they just go back and say, yep, let's just have a guy who can execute the routes, execute the reads, know what they're going to do. We can trust to learn everything that they need to do. But I think it'll be an interesting draft this year. Last year we were spoiled. Like if Justin Fields came out this year, even you would have Justin Field at the top of this, at the top of this
Yeah,
class.
and Matt Corral reminds me a lot of the talking points about Josh Allen coming out of the draft, right? But
Yeah,
Josh Allen got it all together. And I think Josh Allen's tape was better. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of the same talking points you're getting are those talking points of the negatives they were throwing on Josh Allen. So any of these guys can overcome some of this shit. It's just I'm not as sold as, some of the past draft classes.
yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, you brought up Kellen Mond, but he might be a dead duck in Minnesota too because they didn't draft him. They brought Sean Mannion fucking back. I know he knows that system, but he is god awful. So unless they're just bringing him back to be in the QB room as our second string quarterback, that says a lot of bad shit about Kellen Mond too.
Yeah, I think Kellen Mond's just gone to the wrong place for him. I think he's like Kellen Mond's take. We both fell in love with Kellen Mond last year. You were really happy when
I wanted Davis Mills, but I was happy with Kellen Mond.
You wanted Davis Mills, but we were very happy with Kellen Mond. Like I think we fell in love with it, and I still think Kellen Mond could go to another organization and do just fine. I just think something about him and the Vikings just hasn't worked very well.
Well, it doesn't help when the regime that drafted you is gone a year later, too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe that will help. That's the thing. Maybe that will help him to because he wasn't working in that regime for him. But Davis Mills has played awesome. But we were saying a lot of the stuff that we were saying about Corral, Pickett, Wills, Malik Wills, where it's like,
yeah, these guys are like 6, 7, and 8 in last year's draft. You know what I mean? Or 8, 9, and 10.
Their third round pick. Last year's draft, they're in that Kyle Trask, Kellen Mond.
Yeah, Davis Mills. Yeah,
Davis Mills. They're that bracket there. That's where they are. But because of the way the NFL works, you've got to spend a first round pick on a quarterback if you need a quarterback. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on them.
Hey, they all get a big cha-ching with their bank account because they came out in the right year.
Exactly. So what idiot, which agents, who the fuck have Trask, Mond, and Mills employed that has told them to not wait till the next year? Terrible. But if you're there,
Davis Mills, because he was only a 2 or 1 year starter, or one, yeah.
So, and if you're there and being ready to be taken, it's very difficult to then say, I'll go back to college for another year. Where what happens if you break your leg?
And I'm sure they were telling those guys, "Oh, you're going to be a late first, early second." You know what I mean?
Well, I bet Kellen Mond's agents were fucking going crazy when Chris Sims is QB rankings came out and they had him ranked at number 5. I'm pretty sure they were going mental. But this draft class I think there's a lot of promise in this draft class. I do in terms of quarterbacks, but I just think all the teams need to be sensible and all the fan bases need to be sensible in terms of their expectations and not expect to get people coming in and performing in the same way as Wilson, Lawrence, Mac Jones, those guys, because this is a classic draft and sit and see what happens for most of these guys.
All right, Matty. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot. What are you thinking for next time?
Wide receivers and corners. Let's do one attack and one defense at the same.
That works for me. The wide receiver and the corner class is very exciting. Anybody who needs receivers and corners, do not worry if your team does not get them high because there is going to be some studs in the later rounds. I'm excited. But if you can get one of these top corners or top receivers, you're definitely going to thank yourself too.
Yeah, Cowboys are bouncing right now with how our drafts have panned out recently has been very good. And all of our needs we don't need a quarterback, which is good. In this draft, as long as you don't need a quarterback, you're in luck because trust me, guys, when we go through these next fuckers, we're going to be talking about future Hall of Famers. Trust me.
All right, guys. Well, there you have it from Matty himself, so you can book that. Thanks for watching. One world, one love. Deuces.
Cheerio.